is a moment in every leader's life when the mirror becomes the battlefield. Not the boardroom, not the war zone, not the negotiation table, but the space between your ears, where doubt whispers louder than applause, where your own mind becomes the enemy, and the question that shakes your soul is not, can I win? It's, am I worthy of even trying? And in that dark moment, when the world is watching, when the stakes are brutal and the burden unbearable, the weak wait. But the great lead anyway. That was Winston Churchill. Not the statue, not the soundbite, not the war hero you learned about in school, but the man, the flawed, fearful, rejected, ridiculed man who built his courage in silence long before the spotlight ever found him. They said he was finished, washed up, too old, too difficult, too loud. And yet, when the world fell apart, when darkness clawed at every inch of Europe, when men begged for retreat, it was Churchill who rose. Because he had already fought the war within and won. That's what most people miss. Churchill didn't step into history ready. He stepped in because he refused to let self-doubt dictate destiny. He wasn't chosen. He chose himself. You want to lead? Then understand this. You will never feel ready. Not truly. Not when it matters. And if you wait for the perfect moment, the world will burn down around you while you organize your excuses. The greatest lie doubt ever told was, you need more time. Time to feel confident. Time to be validated. Time to become fearless. But leadership doesn't wait for your comfort. It demands your conviction. Churchill knew it. He didn't lead because he had every answer. He led because he had one belief that outshouted everything else inside him. This is my fight. This is my hour. And I will not stand down. That belief is the seed of unshakable leadership. It doesn't come from outside. It's forged in the fires of self-refusal, the refusal to be ruled by hesitation, by history, by the opinions of lesser men. Think about it. The same man who gave Britain its spine had once been humiliated in Gallipoli, demoted, disgraced, pushed into political exile. For a decade, he sat in the wilderness of power, while the world moved on, while leaders ignored him, while critics sharpened their knives. And what did he do? He read, he studied, he wrote over 5 million words. He kept his sword sharp while the world slept. Because even in rejection, Churchill led himself. That's where greatness begins. Not with applause, not with rank, not with cameras, but with the man who can look into the mirror, face his own doubt, and say, you don't own me. You don't define me. I will act anyway. You want to lead when you're not ready? Then stop waiting for the feeling. Start building the foundation. Confidence is not the root, it's the fruit. And it grows when you do the work in private before the world ever sees the storm coming. Churchill didn't wait for an invitation to become the man history needed. He became him, quietly, steadily, furiously, before the door opened. That's your call. You're not here to feel safe. You're here to become strong. You're not here to feel certain. You're here to develop courage without clarity, because that's what leadership is. Not walking in knowing the path, but walking in anyway and building the road as you go. Here is the next 800-word section of your cinematic voiceover script. Churchill versus self-doubt, how to lead when you're not ready. Self-doubt does not shout, it whispers. It creeps in during the silence, when the applause has faded, when the crowd is gone. When your hand trembles before the signature, when your voice wavers before the speech, when the stakes are so high, your knees buckle under the weight of a single decision. That's when it speaks. You're not him. You're not ready. They'll see through you. And unless you understand its voice, unless you learn how to confront it, it becomes the hidden puppeteer of your life. But here's the truth. Self-doubt is not your enemy. It is your signal. It means you're standing on the edge of something real, something enormous, something that requires a version of you that does not yet exist. That edge, that sharp, terrifying edge, is where Churchill stood. Day after day, speech after speech, war after war. He was not without fear, he was not without uncertainty, but he never let those things outrank his duty. Because he had done the work that most leaders avoid, he had gone to war with himself first. He tore through every weakness, every flaw, every moment of failure and disgrace. And instead of burying it, he owned it. He took his scars, his failures, his exiles, and built an inner fortress from them. Because if you do not build strength from your past, you will be broken by your future. Mindset is not a trick. It's not a poster on the wall or a quote in your phone. It is the architecture of your reality. And Churchill's mindset was not soft. It was forged in rejection, in doubt, in humiliation. He knew how to think when thinking turned to poison. He knew how to speak life when death was all around him. And he understood this one brutal truth. If you don't control your mind will control you. That is the battlefield now. It's not out there. It's in here. Before you raise the flag, before you speak to the crowd, before you step into the room and call yourself leader, you must declare war on the version of yourself that wants to hide. You must look at the man who plays it safe, who makes excuses, who stays small, and bury him. Because leadership is not born in your resume, it's born in your resolve. Churchill once said, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." Understand what he meant. He didn't worship success. He didn't fear failure. He feared only the absence of courage. Because courage is the currency of every great leader. Not perfection, not charisma, not knowledge, courage. The courage to speak when silence feels safer. The courage to act when no one agrees. The courage to walk forward when every bone in your body says retreat. That's what makes you ready, not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. So you're not ready? Good. Because no great leader ever was. Lincoln wasn't. Mandela wasn't. Churchill sure as hell wasn't. But they answered anyway. Because something in them burned hotter than fear. A vision, a duty, a fire that would not go out. That is your call now. To become the kind of leader who does not wait for readiness, but becomes relentless. To build a mind so fortified, so focused, so on fire, that self-doubt becomes fuel and fear becomes direction. You don't have to be perfect. You have to be present. You have to show up. And when the doors close, when the decisions tighten around your throat, when every part of you screams to pass the torch, you light the damn match and carry it yourself. That is the Churchill Code. Leadership is not about knowing the path. It's about choosing to walk into the fog with your chest open, your jaw set, and your mission intact. That's what Churchill did. He didn't inherit a clear road. He inherited ruins. An empire bruised, its people anxious, its parliament unsure. And still, he painted a vision so bold, so unflinching, that even the broken stood straighter just by hearing his voice. But where did that clarity come from? From within. From a mind that refused to be swayed by the chaos outside. From a man who understood, before I command armies, I must first command myself. That is where vision is born. Not from strategy, not from theory, not from what others expect, but from inner alignment with the fire you were built to carry. Churchill saw the future, not because it was obvious, but because he was willing to speak what needed to be true, even before anyone else believed it. And that is the highest power of a leader. Not to predict the future, but to declare it into existence. To speak it into the bones of others so fiercely, so vividly, that doubt itself is silenced in the roar of your conviction. And yet, clarity is not loud, it's not noise, it's not volume, it's precision. It's the ability to strip away the clutter, to see through the fog, to name what must be done and say, now, me. Clarity is the opposite of hesitation. It is the weapon that slays paralysis. It is the edge that cuts through the noise of your own excuses. When Churchill stood before the British people, he didn't offer them comfort. He didn't promise ease. He promised blood, toil, tears, and sweat. Because he knew it is far more dangerous to lead with lies than with hard truth. Clarity is courage in language. It's the fire that makes your words real. And once your vision is clear, once your mind is locked in and your voice speaks with thunder, you must act. Because vision without action is nothing but smoke. The battlefield is filled with dreamers who never moved, who thought the thought, spoke the speech, but never took the step. Churchill wasn't that kind of man. When others debated, he decided. When others delayed, he deployed. When others feared, he moved. Even when the path was uncertain, even when the enemy outnumbered them 10-1, even when his own people doubted him, he acted. Because action is how leaders earn their voice. You don't wait for clarity to take shape. You forge it through movement. Every time you act, you silence self-doubt. You bury hesitation. You become more than what you were the day before. The world doesn't follow people who think, it follows those who do, who show up, who risk, who make mistakes and keep going. That's what Churchill did, again and again. And that's why his name is etched in time. Not because he was always right, but because he was always responsible. He didn't run from chaos, he ran toward it. He stood in front of it. He made himself the shield his nation could. And that's what leadership is, not control, not certainty, not approval, responsibility, to carry what others can't, to decide when others won't, to speak when others hide. That is what you must now become. Not the man with every answer, but the man who moves anyway. Because in this life, you're not remembered for what you could have done. You're remembered for what you chose to do when the world said you weren't ready. So stand up, look self-doubt in the eye, and take the step no one expects you to take. That is where legacy begins. Purpose is not a slogan. It is not a brand. It is not a phrase you write on a whiteboard. Purpose is pain, transformed. It is forged in silence, tempered in rejection, and made unstoppable by the decision to carry something bigger than yourself. That's why Churchill could lead when others collapsed. He didn't wake up to chase titles or popularity. He woke up to carry a nation on his back. He knew his purpose so deeply, so immovably, that no amount of mockery, no loss of position, no political exile could rip it from his spine. Because once you find it, once you taste what it means to live for something eternal, you no longer chase feelings. You forge fate. That is what every great leader eventually understands. When your purpose becomes clear, your doubts shrink. Not because they disappear, but because they are dwarfed by the size of your mission. Most people collapse under pressure because they've made their life too small. They lead for approval. They speak for applause. They act only when it benefits them. But the Churchill Code demands something far more brutal, far more beautiful. You lead because the world needs a leader, and no one else is coming. But purpose alone isn't enough. It must be married to discipline. Discipline is how you make your purpose real. It is the daily sacrifice, the lonely repetitions, the mornings when your body screams and your mind quits, and you rise anyway. Churchill's discipline wasn't glamorous, it was obsessive, it was daily, it was ruthless. He read thousands of books. He studied history like a soldier sharpening a blade. He wrote constantly, not for fame, but for preparation. He controlled his time like it was a battlefield. Because he knew, when the moment comes, you will not rise to your level of passion. You will fall to your level of preparation. Discipline is the bricks you lay when no one is watching, so that when the storm comes, you have a wall to stand behind. And storms will come. Doubt will come. Criticism will come. Exhaustion will come. But if you've trained, if you've prepared, if your will has been carved into steel through daily devotion, then nothing can break you. People think leaders are born. They're not. They are built. In silence, in sweat, in rejection, in failure. They are built by choosing discomfort over ease, vision over distraction, legacy over likes. Churchill was not born a titan. He became one. Through relentless effort and the discipline to build strength when the world handed him silence. That's your path. If you want to lead when you're not ready, then you must outwork the version of you that doubts everything. Every morning, every hour, every decision. You must become so consistent in your discipline that even your fear begins to trust you. Because fear respects commitment, it respects discipline, it respects action, it does not respect passivity. It does not respect waiting, and it will not wait for you to grow. You have a mission. You feel it in your bones. Even now, while reading this, something in your chest is stirring. That is not noise. That is the call. The ancient, primal call to rise, to lead, to become something more. It's not asking if you're ready. It's asking if you're willing. Willing to move while afraid. Willing to speak while shaking. Willing to act while unprepared. Willing to do what Churchill did and face down the voices in your head that say, you can't, you're not enough, not now. And answer with action so bold, so relentless that those voices never dare speak again. This is how it begins. Not with the world's permission, not with the perfect plan, but with a man who says, I will lead because someone must, and I will not wait for permission to become who I was born to be. Adaptability is not a luxury, it is survival. And in leadership, survival is not about standing tall when everything goes right. It's about learning how to bend when everything breaks. Churchill understood this better than most, because the man who led Britain through its darkest hours was not the same man they once mocked, not the same man who fell from grace, not the same man who lost his seat, his influence, his voice. He evolved. He learned to pivot, to adapt, to reshape without losing the steel at his core. Because when your purpose is fixed, your methods can be fluid. And when the enemy changes shape, you don't cry about it. You become something they've never seen. That's how Churchill returned from political exile. That's how he became relevant again after a decade in the wilderness. Not by demanding the world return to him, but by becoming unignorable. That's what you must do. Stop praying for the conditions to align. Stop hoping for the world to understand you. Outgrow your excuses. Outadapt your limitations. Be like water in fire, like fire and stone. Change form if you must, but never let them touch your mission, because the world will test you. It will twist you. It will try to break you into smaller, more comfortable versions of yourself. But you are not here to be comfortable. You are here to be unchangeable in mission and uncatchable in movement. That's how resilience is born. Resilience is not inherited. It's not built in peace. It's built in the storm. When the winds tear at everything you've built and you choose to rise again anyway. Every blow Churchill took, every betrayal, every exile, every loss, he turned into brick and steel. He didn't hide his pain. He hardened his resolve. Because resilience is not about denying pain. It's about deciding that pain will not define you. It's not about pretending to be unbreakable. It's about getting broken, then rebuilding stronger. You want to lead when you're not ready? Then you must make this decision now. Nothing breaks me without my permission. Nothing. Not failure, not doubt, not the laughter of small minds, not the silence of false friends, not the slow seasons, not the setbacks, not even the voice inside me that sometimes whispers, "What if you're not the one?" Because I am the one. Not because I'm perfect, not because I'm chosen, but because I chose myself. And I will rise, over and over and over, until the world learns my name. That is what Churchill did. That is why he stood while others fell. That is why his shadow still leads men decades after he left the earth. Because he was not made of certainty. He was made of conviction, not forged in applause, but in fire. Now ask yourself, what fire are you willing to walk through? Because self-doubt doesn't vanish with success. It evolves. It becomes more subtle, more convincing, and your only answer is constant growth. Leaders don't arrive, they become. Over and over again, they are reborn with each crisis, sharpened with each rejection, made more dangerous with each mistake. You must become addicted to learning, obsessed with evolving, unwilling to remain who you were last year, last week, or yesterday. Because stagnation is where self-doubt breeds. But progress, even the smallest kind, is where belief is born. Every time you learn, you reclaim ground from fear. Every time you grow, you remind the world you're not done yet. That's what Churchill did. He never stopped studying, never stopped questioning, never stopped becoming more than he was the year before. And that's how he defeated the world's greatest darkness. Not with the man he had once been, but with the man he had forged himself into. You must decide what your life will echo, because one day your name will either be whispered in reverence or forgotten in silence. And that outcome has nothing to do with luck. It has everything to do with how you answer fear. Winston Churchill's greatness was not fate. It was fury, a relentless rebellion against the soft decay of self-doubt. He didn't wait for strength. He became it, brick by brick, blow by blow. And so must you. Because the truth is, no one will ever hand you the crown. No one will ever invite you to your own greatness. If you want to lead, you must seize it with blood and grit and decision. You must walk into the fire before anyone believes you'll survive it. You must burn the bridges to your excuses, set fire to the backdoor exits, and declare with thunder, "This is who I am, and I will lead because I must." Your doubt, it's not weakness. It's proof that you're standing on sacred ground, that something within you knows the next step is dangerous, massive, divine. So stop asking for permission. Stop waiting for the stars to align. Stop checking your confidence like a gas tank. You are the storm. Not the storm that destroys, but the storm that awakens, that shakes others out of comfort, that lights up dead skies, that breaks stagnation with thunder and breathes fire into the hearts of the asleep. That's who you are. That's who Churchill was. He didn't lead because he felt ready. He led because someone had to, and he refused to watch the world collapse while he stayed silent. The war for your destiny is not fought with bullets or ballots. It's fought in the silence of your own mind, when no one's watching and everything in you says quit. That's where leaders are made, in the unseen battles, in the small decisions, in the war between the you that settles and the you that builds nations. Churchill made that choice every day. He chose to be hated if it meant being right. He chose to be doubted if it meant being needed. He chose to carry the weight before anyone believed he could. And in doing so, he became immortal. So now you must ask yourself, will you wait for your moment? Or will you become the one who makes it? Will you flinch in doubt? Or will you walk through fire with your head unbowed? Will you die with your greatness locked inside of you, buried under excuses, lost in what ifs? Or will you rise again and again until the world has no choice but to follow? This is not motivation. This is not inspiration. This is war. And you're not just in it, you were born for it. So rise, take the step, lead when you're not ready, and become the fire the world forgot it needed.